Welcome to DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. Ravenloft: The Horrors Within is out now. I did a review and overview video for it recently, and in that video I said I'd take a deep dive into the stat blocks of the brand new monsters in the book. We're talking ones that are new to Ravenloft 5th edition or 5.5e, and not those that have been updated from Van Richten's Guide, the previous Ravenloft book, such as Bonus, Dullahan, Grimishka, and so on. The stat blocks for Esmeralda, Van Richten, and Madame Eva. Because they're in Curse of Strahd, I'm going to do a video about those in detail, and that's probably going to be my next video, my next Curse of Strahd video. By my count, there's 15 new stat blocks, not counting Darklords. Again, I'll probably talk about Darklords in future videos. And there's lots of aberrations and cosmic horror monsters, probably because of the inclusion of Innsmouth as a new Domain of Dread. They are in order: Death's Head Tree, Elder Thing, Gug, Migo, Mist Horror, Mist Wanderer, Mordenheim's Monster, Night Gaunt, Relentless Nightmare, Shoggoth, Strahd Skeleton, Waxwork, Yithian, and plus the Weathermay-Foxgrove twins, Jennifer and Laurie. I think it'd be too much to cover all of them in one video, so I'm splitting this into a two-parter. So this first video is going to be A to M, that's Death's Head Tree to Mordenheim's Monster. And the second video to follow in a couple of weeks' time will be N to Z, Night Gaunt to Yithian, and we'll also include the Weathermay-Foxgrove twins as a bonus. I did a video about the Weathermay-Foxgrove twins, and I talked about how I adapted the stat blocks, or used different stat blocks to the ones I suggested in Van Richten's Guide, but they've got their own stat blocks now, which is pretty cool. Lastly, I'm a big fan of the monsters know what they're doing, and I'm going to try and analyze them in that style. The author Keith did do Van Richten's Guide monsters on his blog. If you want battle tactics for those, obviously there'll be the 2014 Van Richten's Guide versions. I imagine he might do Horrors Within monsters in the future as well. Let's go. Number 1, Death's Head Tree. So we had Death's Heads in Van Richten's Guide. They're like sort of floating heads that do different things, and there were 3 variants. Now they've actually been split into 3 separate stat blocks instead of having one stat block that mentions that there are 3 variants, but I'm not going to go over them because they're pretty much still the same. The tree, however, is new to 5th edition. Because Death's Head trees aren't new, they were first introduced, I believe, in 2nd edition's Castles Forlorn. And I nearly ran a Death's Head tree when I ran Forlorn a year or so ago, but my players didn't go to that location, which was a pity. And now we have an official stat block. It's challenge rating 4, a huge plant. It's got high strength and con scores, but a low intelligence, which is fair enough. It is just a plant. It can move. It's got a speed of 20 feet, which is interesting, similar to an awakened tree. I always think that a plant creature can't move. It's kind of stuck in place, but I think a lot of them can move. Overhanging branches. Allies have half cover if they're in its space, so that would be a +2 to AC and dex saves. Unholy regrowth. 2d6. Death's Head trees regrow from around it if it's destroyed, around the same place in 365 days. So that could mean a lot more of these things appear a year later unless certain criteria is met. There's a certain way to make sure it doesn't happen. Multi-attack is 2 slam attacks. Exploding Head. It requires a saving throw, 10-foot sphere within 120 feet, and if you fail, it's necrotic damage and you're poisoned for a turn, which is essentially just ranged attacks. So you can either do one of these or 2 of the melee attacks. There's a bonus action called Head Fruits. It's an interesting mechanic where allies in its space are given temporary HP. These things belong in Forlorn, naturally. Probably also Tempest, anywhere really. In the Dungeon Master's actual play, I'm going to do a video about it when Season 1 concludes. They had one in Sithicus. That's episode 6, if you want to see it for yourself. I'll include a link in the description. Number 2, Elder Thing. Challenge rating 14, it's a large aberration. Flavor text says they were created by Shoggoths and are rivals to Yithians. I'll cover both of those in part 2. They have high stats across the board except for dex, so they're smart and strong, but they're pretty slow. Magic resistance is always nice. It's kind of a standard trait that means advantage against saving throws, against spells and magical effects. Multi-attack is 2 Soothing Tentacle attacks, and it uses Psychic Skewer. Soothing Tentacle, it's a melee attack roll, psychic damage, and the target's charmed for a turn with no saving throw. You get hit, you get charmed. Psychic Skewer, ranged attack, it requires a saving throw, psychic damage, and they gain 1 level of exhaustion if they're already charmed, and now they're stunned as well. I can see that being pretty brutal. There's also a recharge ability called Mind Scouring Spores. Within 20 feet of it, there's a saving throw, and it's 10d10 psychic damage. Then for 1 minute, if the target takes the magic action, that's new, I believe 5.5e wording to basically say if they cast a spell, use a magic item, they take 3d6 psychic damage. That's brutal if used against spellcasters. And I'd argue with given this thing's high intelligence and wisdom, it probably knows who the spellcasters are by looking at them. It also has a bonus action, Eldritch Magic. 3 times a day it can either cast Command, Detect Thoughts, Gust of Wind, or Non-Detection. Elements of this, the whole Charmed and Stunned combo, and I think the fact spellcasters should make for a pretty interesting fight if you allow it in your one-shot or campaign. And one of these is suggested in the Innsmouth adventure. That's the level 11 adventure detailed in the book. Number 3, Gug. Another aberration, although this one's more Underdark themed as it likes to dwell underground. And the art shows it attacking a drow. Challenge rating 12, huge aberration. Flavor text says they fear and hate ghouls. That's pretty interesting. Very specific. You could have a cool setup where a Gug chases the PCs to somewhere with ghouls, or the PCs might have the idea to lure it to ghouls, or to lure ghouls to it. 250 HP, so it's more than the Elder thing, despite having a lower challenge rating, but I think that's because it's a tanky boy. So it got a +6 to con. High strength as well, decent dex and wisdom, average charisma, low intelligence. It's got pack tactics. I'm not going to bother to explain that. If you're ever on a wolf or a kobold, you probably know what that is. Advantage if one of your allies is within 5 feet of the target. I said I won't explain it and I explained it. Oh well. Multi-attack is 2 claw attacks and it uses Chew. Claw attacks deal damage but also grapple automatically. And it can grapple 2 creatures with its 2 claws. And then Chew. Only on a grapple creature. If they fail the saving throw, they are restrained instead of grappled. And they're placed into the Gug's mouth, taking piercing damage at the start of the Gug's turn, so not straight away. And it can have up to 4 creatures in its mouth, plus there's rules for how someone can escape from it. I like how the damage is not dealt immediately. It gives the PC who's restrained or other PCs the chance to free them just in the nick of time before it comes round to their turn again. It seems like a pretty uncomplicated monster to run, that's always good in my opinion. Big brute with a lot of hit points. Which domains of dread? Well, anything with underground tunnels. Blurt, Spur, Tempest, maybe 1 or 2 others. I added some tunnels to Forlorn. I think that might have been because the original Adventure Castles Forlorn had tunnels. Or use it in an Underdark campaign if you're thinking of running out of the Abyss and you want to include this monster. Number 4, Migo. Check the pronunciation, by the way. It's definitely Migo and not Mygo, but I did think it was Mygo at first. Another aberration! Another one suggested in the Innsmouth adventure. This one's medium and it's challenge rating 9. Favorite text says they like collecting brains for research and experimenting purposes. And also, while they're not adverse to light, they prefer dark places anyway, so they're usually found in caverns. Could be another potential Underdark creature. Lots going on with this stat block. There's info for their silver canister. This used to store brains. It's got its own AC, HP resistance info. And how long it takes the Migo to build another one if it breaks. It's also got magic resistance, as talked about earlier. Multi-attack is 2 pincer attacks, or 1 pincer and 1 use of Dazing Ray, if available, which is a recharge ability. The pincer does slashing and acid damage, and the target is grappled, and it can grapple 2 creatures with its 2 pincers. The Dazing Ray is a dex saving throw, and if they fail, they take lightning and force damage. And the target is stunned until the end of the Migo's next turn. So if it has Dazing Ray available, it would probably use that first, because if it stuns the target, they'll be much easier to pincer because they've got advantage on the attack roll against them. Extract Brain. Target has to be grappled and stunned for this to happen. So, from the previous attacks. Con saving throw does tons of piercing damage. Wow, 14d10. That averages out to 77. And if it reduces the target to 0 HP, it dies, its brain is removed, and the brain goes in the canister. So it requires the silver canister to do it, if it's still got one. Plus it can also cast Modify Memory and Plane Shift. Plane Shift seems like a very odd choice, given that this is the Domains of Dread, and the intro chapter tells us that spells like Plane Shift don't work in the Domains of Dread, but presumably it can still go to the border of Ethereal, maybe retreat there if its canister is destroyed or it's nearly killed. Or if you're using one outside of a Domains of Dread campaign, then it just functions normally. Number 5, Mist Horror. A large undead that's challenge rating 3. I love the idea of this one. I can see it attacking people as they enter or leave a domain through the mists. I did a video a while back talking about monsters that are quite thematically appropriate to add to the mists during mist travel. And if I were to do that video now, this would probably be one of the main ones I include. Very low strength, very low intelligence, which kind of both make sense. But everything else is pretty decent. Funnily enough, its highest stat is Charisma, although it's probably just to boost its spellcasting ability. Airform means it can squeeze through small spaces and can stop in an enemy's space. One with the mists. If it's in fog or mist, it's invisible. But if it's outside of fog or mist, it's incapacitated. So if it's chasing people as they enter a domain, it won't pursue them once they're in a domain proper. Except it can cast Fog Cloud at will. So it could make its own fog/mist and follow them further and deeper into the domain. Multi-attack is 2 Mind Rend attacks, but can replace one with command if it's available. You can cast that once a day. Mind Rend is a melee attack that does psychic damage. It's only a +5 to hit, but obviously if they're in the fog and the mist and they're invisible and they can't be seen, they'll have advantage. Now, as a bonus action, Instill Dread. It's a recharge ability that gives people who fail a wisdom saving throw the frightened condition if they're in the mist horror's space when it does it until the start of its next turn. I can see this being a good low-level threat to include early in a domain hopping campaign, maybe when leaving or arriving into a domain of dread for the first time. In fact, it's a possible encounter in the Wandering the Mist table in the intro chapter. You can have it chase them and say that it doesn't chase them beyond the mist's edge, but if it does Fog Cloud to follow them outside the mists but then loses concentration, they can go to town on it as it'll be visible and incapacitated at that point. Number 6, Mist Wanderer. This is essentially the NPC stat block for people of the Domains of Dread who are adept at travelling the mists. Not to be confused with the Mist Wanderer Dark Gift or the Mist Wanderer NPC list that includes people like the Weathermay-Foxgrove twins, Esmeralda, Van Richten, and so on. Its flavor text says, those who travel between the Domains of Dread develop traditions that hasten their travel and protect them from evil. Vistani, along with those who research their ways or the secrets of the mists, are the most adept of such domain explorers. So essentially saying this is the 5.5e version of the Vistani, but it's not limited to just the Vistani. People who learn from them or learn the secrets of the mists can also have these traits. Small or medium humanoid, that's challenge rating 3. All stats are in the 10 to 16 range, with wisdom being the highest. Death Curse. If a Mist Wanderer dies, people within 5 feet of them roll a charisma saving throw, and if they fail, they're cursed. And while cursed in this way, they have the blinded and deafened conditions. That would suck. I can see an evil DM basically having them escort PCs to a domain, then they're killed after entering a domain, potentially causing this to happen. The Mistwalker trait means they can travel safely through the mists to reach a specific domain it knows by name. The Wanderer still can't bypass domain borders closed by Darklord's will. He said Dorklord. 2 interesting points here. First, travel safely through the mists, so presumably no random encounters, such as mist horrors, while traveling in their presence. So if they're an escort to a domain, you travel there safely, free of monsters and danger. And number 2, you can't bypass domain borders closed by Darklord's will. Assuming this means to leave a domain, but I did wonder if it means entering a closed domain as well. I'm assuming it only corresponds with escaping a domain, and that's how I'd rule it. In fact, it'd have to be. Otherwise, people like Van Richten, Esmeralda, and the Vistani couldn't go into Barovia as per Curse of Strahd. So you can enter a closed domain, but you can't leave. Like that final line in that Eagles song. Now I want to make Hotel California a domain of dread. Multi-attack is 2 Radiant Burst attacks, which can be melee or ranged and do radiant damage. You can replace one with the Mind Spike spell if it's available. And then it can cast Light and Mage Hand at will, plus once a day it can cast Augury, Detect Magic, and Mind Spike. I wasn't familiar with Mind Spike. It's originally a Xanathar's spell that's now in the 2024 Player's Handbook. Does damage and then allows the caster to potentially track a target while on the same plane of existence. And Evil Eye. Once a day they can cast Hold Person. This is a downgrade of sorts from the Curse of Strahd version of Evil Eye, which allowed Charm Person and Animal Friendship as options as well. You see a cool scenario where PCs befriend a Mist Wanderer, whether it's a Vistana or someone else, maybe a member of the Keepers of the Feather, and they help them navigate the mists to their next location. And number 7, the last one for this video, Mordenheim's Monster. A medium construct that's challenge rating 12. These are creations of Dr. Victor Mordenheim, who's the Darklord of Lemordia. I did do a video all about Lemordia if you want to check it out, albeit it was before The Horrors Within came out, so it refers to the information from Van Richten's guide. It's basically a stronger flesh golem, which is challenge rating 5, so it's nice to have something that's stronger and unique to Ravenloft. High strength and con, that kind of goes without saying. Low charisma, mid wisdom, and decent dex and intelligence. It's interesting that intelligence is 14. This isn't the brainless Frankenstein's monster trope. It's pretty smart. It's been a long time since I watched the Kenneth Branagh Frankenstein movie, but I've got a vague memory that the monster in that, played by Robert De Niro, was quite intelligent. Plus 14 to athletics. Wow. 161 HP, so very tanky, big old bag of hit points. Similar to flesh golems, it has lightning absorption, so it gains HP equal to what the damage would have been if someone does a lightning attack on it. But it also increases their speed by 40 for a turn. And it has a base speed of 40, so that's 80. So does that mean it can dash 160 feet? Wow. It also has the immutable form trait, which means it can't be shapeshifted, and it's got magic resistance as well. Multi-attack is 2 slam attacks, and it uses crush or throw. Slam is bludgeoning lightning damage plus auto-grappled, and it can grapple 2 people, one in each of its hands. There's lots of monsters I've covered today that seem to have an auto-grapple feature built in if they hit someone with a melee attack. Cool flavor you could consider is if somebody does a critical hit with it on a weapon that does slashing damage while they have someone grappled, maybe the hand or arm comes off and then it can grapple one less creature. This does go against rules as written, how you free a creature that's grappled, which I think it talks about, but it's just a cool idea I had. Plays into the whole Stitch body parts thing, and whoop, you've lopped off his arm and it just looks like it's missing an arm like it's nothing. Crush. If somebody's grappled by it, strength saving throw, takes bludgeoning lightning damage, it's now restrained, and the target is suffocating as well. Cool. Throw. Throws grappled creature within 30 feet. It's dexterity saving throw or bludgeoning damage, and they're prone. And it says the creature and each creature in the destination space. So it can throw a creature at other creatures and hurt the lot of them. That's cool. And as a bonus action, it can do something called Violent Leap. Spends 10 feet of its movement to jump to a space within 40 feet that contains one or more medium or small creatures, and they have to do a dex saving throw or take bludgeoning damage and are knocked prone. So the distance it can cover, if it does that in conjunction with having been hit with a lightning attack, which doubles its speed, it could do it could do an action dash and then use 10 feet of its movement to then leap another 40 feet. What's that total now? 190 if my maths is correct? This isn't in my notes, by the way. I'm literally figuring this out right now, so that could be bad maths. The Lemordia chapter says that the characters Elise and Adam are Mordenheim monsters, both of whom have ties to Victra's backstories. If you want to learn more about them and utilizing them, and potentially more about this stat block, worth taking a look at that. Before I wrap up, I was asked a question recently in a YouTube comment about if you can use these stat blocks if you're still using the 2014 original 5e rules. Bearing in mind this is 2024 5.5e rules. I would say, I think I answered yes. I think so, and I plan to. Might be slightly OP versus the 2014 versions, because I understand not only do PCs get a boost in the new rules, but so did monsters, but it should be okay. I've been using Drakkenheim monsters recently. That's going to be another future video where I say Drakkenheim monsters that work well in Ravenloft. And I believe they're designed for 2024 5.5e, and it was fine. So for anyone who had doubts or uncertainty, you know, they might be a little bit stronger, but you're probably good. That's it for this one. Part 2 coming soon, probably in a few weeks' time. My next Ravenloft video will be covering Night Gaunt to Yithian plus the Weathermay-Foxgrove twins. Beyond that, I also have plans for a video where I talk about the new Tarot deck, or you could use the old Tarot deck if you wish. Yes, I'm a nerd, I've got both. And basically using the information in the Horrors Within where it says you can do this kind of draw. And the whole thing when the other Domains of Dread table where drawing a card in the mists turns into a mist talisman that leads you to a random domain corresponding with the card. I'll talk about those and just basically do some test draws and see what it's like. I also want to do a run through of the Shadows of Sithicus adventure. This came out as a sort of pre-order bonus, and I think it's not Adventurers League, it's something similar, but it's different. I don't know. I don't think it's replacing Adventurers League. I think it's just similar or different to Adventurers League. I should have researched it properly before this. I think by the time I do that video, I will have researched it properly and can answer that question properly. But yes, keep an eye out for that as well. Covers a couple of domains and might be good flavor for those domains, a bit like when I recently covered Ravenloft Mist Hunters. And we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for watching.